Greetings to those on Earth and elsewhere. This week on Monday, my friends who may originally have emanated from the US were over here in this area, those whom I've known for many years and whom I originally met in Paris, France, where I spent a total of 12 years. I met these friends here in this southeastern Asian metropolis at an apartment hotel in which they were staying for 1 or 2 nights, and conversed with them and their kids for about an hour and a half before I ran off to work, and they ran off to catch their plane to the land of oil. Just as last year when we met here in very similar circumstances, I had the feeling that we had never been separated, and that we were merely continuing our conversations, taking up on the previous ones that had been left off when we diasporized ourselves from France in early 2009. The talking was all too short, and I left with a spring in my heels, a buzz which lasted 2 days. Right now, we have a public holiday here which is drawing to a close, and I'm out of gas on believing that life may offer further opportunities outside my employ of the last 7 years, of which 4.5 here, or that there may be intelligent life in this locale which engages in abstract thought and is not wholly concerned with cash, rice, and imaginary genetic characteristics attributed to persons of various races. For example, all white people are rich and do not have to work, and that the local people who are in fact white-colored are in reality black and underprivileged to boot, the kind of worldview that is a mirage, that nothing that is flagrantly apparent can disturb, a Disney world of caste and destiny which contains little notion of effort, communication, or exchange. Tomorrow I will return to work, where I teach French, German, and English. I have a long unpaid waiting period during the middle of my day, when I'm stuck in the office without being able to conduct any useful activity. I will be consulting my iPad with a view to speculating in general about present and future life, and I may be drinking coffee at that time. This sense of futility and being a prisoner of one's own life is key to my mindset of these recent years. Furthermore, I love teaching French, which is a language of great depth and feeling. German I can certainly tolerate, harking more closely to specific ethnic roots of the recent past. Meanwhile, the language of English, which is at least 50% of my bread and butter, is as dull as dishwater for me to teach. Furthermore, there are plenty of people who can teach English, most of them incompetent to comment on the language. And why do I have to get my revenue this way? I have no desire to compete with those self-appointed authorities who can compose a single correct or clearly intelligible conceptual sentence, and to whom the local market accords the status of teacher. On the other hand, the French language makes me sprightly, vibrant, and hopeful, while returning to English is as putting on cumbersome shoes of leaden expression. And thanks God that I am able to get my revenue this way in these times of economic Niederlage. I've been to many places over time, with 13 years spent working in marketing, communications, and brand design. Periods of my life have been spent largely in planes, hotels, and meetings in an expensed champagne lifestyle, wallowing in the pressured lap of insomnia, whilst other periods have been in moldy, tiny digs without any certainty as to what next week brings, or where or to what it may lead me. I've once so far been an author of a book which made global press and TV. I speak and teach a number of languages. I am able to examine ancient manuscripts hailing from other millennia from a literary perspective. At times I have flown private planes, and at others I have not been able to afford any kind of vehicle except perhaps a second-hand bicycle. In addition, I've come part way in a spiritual story of personal discovery of the last 6 to 7 years, which waxes and wanes, yet fans a flame inside, which is never even mildly doused. The flame doesn't rise to volcanic proportions either. It's like a constantly illuminating and portable beacon that demonstrates how to proceed in human interactions and reveals a real world much broader and greater in implication than this physical one, in which we deem to believe that we do in fact live. This year in July I lost a great friend to a freak accident, who had visited here in the spring part of 2012, which visit I returned to India in the fall part of the same year. His visit here was really about painting the town red, priming, cracking conversations, basking in the flack of dynamite cultural exchange. My return visit, meanwhile, was more strained, as the circumstances were rather different all around, yet the bond may continue to remain, whilst his physical presence cannot readily be discerned. I continually wish his soul peacefully and comfortably on its journey through our remaining missions. Overall, my story to date is so eclectic that it is hard for me to reconcile, analyze, or draw any conclusions from which to move forward in an apparently coherent manner. In the last 7 years, I have been contacted 3 or so times about career prospects, or headhunted, or almost headhunted. One time I flew to Singapore, another time and a half or so I found myself briefly in the heady office of a large company here in the Big Mango, and the third time I went through a long, detailed and failed recruitment process to join the board of a major company in Beijing, China. Just recently, in January this year, my own efforts to reach out to such opportunities, which in some years have been counted in the hundreds and other years the dozens, have all resulted in some kind of uncanny last-minute cancellation or technicality which stops the proceedings. This has resulted in my forming a kind of psychosis about being cursed to pursue my current path. I fight this mindset successfully for much, but not all of the time. Recently, a new member joined our office on Saturdays and Sundays only. I meet him on Sundays. With him I have engaged in several contiguous and fluid conversations. This is the second individual with whom I have engaged in conversations since arriving in the office 4.5 years ago. I could not converse with others because the banter did not extend past "Have you been to McDonald's? There is a special offer," or again, "Why can you eat Asian food when you are white?" That one from both so-called sides, or "You earn much more than me because you are white," even though my salary is identical to that of the person making those remarks, and I may have, and have indeed on occasions repeatedly examined their salary slips with their consent. Evidently revenue level is betrayed by things other than pieces of paper. Every day, one or several individuals ask me if I am on holiday or how my holiday is going, even though they have seen me working every day for the last 4.5 years. Or, "Why are you wearing Wellington boots in the floods? Isn't that degrading?" "Why can you speak the local language? Isn't that inappropriate? Aren't you embarrassed?" No, not really. I use it for communicating with people when I have the opportunity or when there is the necessity to do so. Communication is the breath of life. And that former diatribe reminding me of certain times in my youth when I would be faced with someone who would be laughing at a black or Indian person speaking English with a UK accent. "Ha ha, how funny!" and so forth ad infinitum, and nothing ever changes. I've watched several people go nuts here without being able to intervene, much to the amusement of locals, and failed to conjure up any desire to follow suit with regard to these messianic or persecution complexes, to the extent to which I am not already subject to such misgivings, promptings, or directional aids. The first boss here in the initial years was prone to bullying me almost every day, with lengthy meetings leveraging the negative management style, trying to extrapolate details of my behavior into massive issues, with constant verbal and written threats of unspecified action. Now we have the third boss, and this process has started again. This is a person whom almost everyone on the staff tried to have removed by petition after he became incumbent. And now, tomorrow, I have some further kind of disciplinary meeting with this individual. I suspect it is to show, again, how I am the source of all evil, and nothing I do is good or useful. So I look forward to that. He doesn't appreciate resistance. However, resistance is of course what we all need to step up as this goes forward. Maybe this is the normal lot of the working human, a total waste of time and energy, which affects customer service and the bottom line negatively, which is what the workforce was pointing out to those powers that are above. A vast gulf and dichotomy between what we say and what we do. Sounds a bit like a resume of the history of human civilization, maybe. And here I am, because financially and culturally I had hit a point of no return in the former Gallic jurisdiction, the City of Light, or of Lights. And this place here to which I have come, but in which I am reminded I do not live, has been a release of that pressure. In Paris I was surrounded by people and by inconvenience. Here I am surrounded by neither. Coming over here, I was attracted to local cuisine, climate and beaches, which by now are no longer what they were and are largely packed with concrete and trash. I was attracted to its language, which I still am, and to those people who come from ordinary backgrounds, few and far between in this locality of Mecca mulls, with their candor, emotionality and straightforward gestures. Their lack of ability to plan or assess consequences, their lack of Western media brainwashing. Head above the tide, a struggle with ethics and the difference between reality and dream, reality and disinformation, like many of the rest of us. So in many ways, I feel totally out of place here, and in many others, I feel solidly in place, just as I do in a number of other world locations. Some areas, cities, countries, establishments leave me completely disjointed and unable to spend any time in them whatsoever. This is undoubtedly my lot in life. It is a purpose and not a limitation. Let us not forget that. Let us thank God for those things of balm and inspiration that we have, those rare, fleeting moments, flashes of lucidity and foresight, bonding, entente and cordial recognition of mutual intelligence. May they prosper, and may God bless you.